We started out with $17,000 in revenue and within 2 years built it to $56 million. We were doing an exorbitant amount of turns and renovations, and we were churning and burning.
Today's conversation is exactly about what it takes to build, scale, and operate a business. We're joined by Chad Rulo, CEO, and Mendy Seegar, EVP of Strategy and Business Development.
Client pays X, but they are using a national provider who's then using another provider who's then using a statewide. So now you're 3, you're 4, you're 5 times removed from the process. Every single company in that chain is taking their percentage. And so the quality of work that's happening in the field is so degraded.
When companies cannot put themselves in the shoes of the client or the resident, they lose that empathy, they lose that understanding. They appear and are disconnected, and they don't seem proactive, they seem reactive. Eventually you're going to run out of vendors or good ones.
Biggest challenge was fear of imperfection, fear of something failing. I think that is one of the biggest things that holds people back, because something might not be perfect, and our human nature is driving us to say, well, if it's not going to be perfect, then I don't want it.
Are you the kind of leader who has had to reinvent yourself, reinvent your business, and stay committed to learning, even when it's uncomfortable? The kind of leader who doesn't want to be the smartest person in the room because you know that's where growth stops. If that's you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, because this is where you belong. Welcome to Inside the Vendor Network, where we go beyond the surface and bring you inside the people, the partnerships, and the businesses driving the real estate and property services industry forward. I am your host, Yovonne Kenny, and welcome back. This episode is brought to you by Palisade, helping operators reduce maintenance tickets, lower the cost of major repairs like shower and tub replacements, and protect their assets from future failures, all while delivering a high-end, durable finish that elevates the resident experience. Today's conversation is exactly about that, what it takes to build, scale, and operate a business that actually holds, not just in theory, but where it matters the most, in the communities it serves. More importantly, what actually works. And what stands out about First Rate is that your boots on the ground across the full life cycle of an asset while staying deeply connected to the communities you operate in. Today, we're joined by Chad Rulo, CEO, and Mendy Seegar, EVP of Strategy and Business Development. Chad, Mendy, welcome to the show. Let's get inside the vendor network.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
So, Chad, you said today is Monday. It's the day before the weekend, and I love that. So we're gonna get through this show, but we have so much great content put together for our audience today. So yeah, let's get inside the vendor network. But before we get started, one of the things I like to do on ITVN is really get to know the guests, because I really believe that that's what this industry is made up of, is the people. Sure, we're businesses and lots of things, but we want to get to know Chad a little bit, and we want to get to know Mendy. So many people do know you both, but there's a whole crew of people out there that don't know you, and I mean really, really know you. Don't stay surface level. Let's get in and talk a little bit about who you both really are. Chad, could you kick us off with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we call it almost Monday, because
Almost
it is
Monday.
almost
Okay.
Monday. Yep, because we love our Mondays around First Rate, and so it's almost here again. It's very exciting. So a little bit about me, right? So beyond the CEO, obviously I spend a lot of time in my business and growing my business and in our communities that we serve. Community is exceptionally important to me. Beyond all of that, and my number one priority and focus in life is my family. I have 4 beautiful children, all sporadic ages, 3 boys, 1 little girl who's about to turn 3, that I'm very excited about, and an incredible wife who keeps us all focused and on task all the time. And we've been married for now 16 years.
Wow. Congratulations. That's amazing. It's a feat.
It is. It's quite incredible.
Mendy Seegar, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Well, I am so blessed to be co-host of the SFR She Suite, and I'm also really blessed to be a part of First Rate Field Services. Chad, I'm so appreciative of you to be able to work with you, and then I love the Everresi Media platform where we're able to talk about industry topics and talk about people. So I'm really excited about those things. I mean, I started way back in the ground up construction, build on your lot custom homes way back in the day. And then 2008, I was able to dive right into the REO industry, which I didn't know even existed. And then in 2020, I was able to join the SFR industry and really get my feet wet in that as well. So I feel like between all of those, I've had a really well-rounded experience. And along the way, I've met some incredible people that I've made lifelong friends of. So it's been a fantastic journey. And of course, my kids have put up with me through all of it. I have 2 grown boys. I have 2 grandchildren that are just basically my best friends. And life could not be better.
Well, I think it's great whenever when we start out with our careers, because I think that a lot of people in this industry don't really put the divide. Chad, to your point, we love Mondays because every day is a good day when you love what you do and
Yes.
when you do it with people that you love. I am so blessed too. I don't get the Sunday fright like, oh, tomorrow, got to go back to that thing. And it's such a blessing, right, to be in that situation. But to your point, Mendy, your kids have put up with it. Our families are in this business too, whether they chose
Yes,
it
they
or
are.
they know, like, it doesn't matter. We could be at dinner and, I'll be like, oh, got to take this. Hang on real quick. Or, what I also love is that our clients and our friends that we've made in this industry also know our families because,
Yes.
again, they're just part of the ecosystem. And it really is, for me, it's a lifestyle business. It's never
Yes, very
been,
much.
job versus, or I can't remember the last time I was off. I might have
Believe
like
that.
gone
I
on
believe you
vacation.
when you say that.
Yeah, I don't have
I've roomed with you, and I'm like, Yvonne, go to bed. Or
to go to sleep.
3 o'clock in the morning. You need
That's right.
rest. Everybody needs rest.
I rest. I like naps. So, well, guys, welcome to the show. And ladies, I always say guys, but welcome to the show. Chad, is this the path that you saw for yourself? Or, tell us a little bit, like, how did you get here? How'd you get to First Rate?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of path, that's such an interesting question, and I am very thankful to be on this show, and get to talk about this and have Mendy with me, and she's an incredible part of our team. And so when we talk about path, it's really interesting to me. I go back to, and I won't get too long winded because I know we don't have a lot of time, but
It's okay.
for the amount of time we can't talk all day, unfortunately. So, but
And you're
I'm reminded of. I'm reminded of just a quick story, right? And that goes back to whenever I met my wife and we were talking, and at that time, I had to do some level setting about who I was as a person. And I told her, I said that I'm a person who is exceptionally ambitious. I've always been ambitious since as far back as I can remember, and I want to do big things in the world. Period. And so if that's something you can live with, and something that you can respect, then we're going to get along very great. If not, this might not be for us, right? Because I want to do big things in the world, and that takes a lot of incredibly hard and challenging work.
Sure.
And so, kind of in that, with that story, in having that conversation, did I know First Rate existed? I don't even know that I guess First Rate was just starting to exist whenever we were having that conversation, but I wasn't aware of it at the time, right? I just knew that I would do big things. And so as I moved throughout my career, and I found First Rate, and I like to think First Rate found me. It's all about timing, and so in business and relationships and everything comes down to the right time. And sometimes it's the right time and sometimes it's not. And so, but first, it just happened to be a perfect timing situation, that I found them and they found me, and we got to work. And from that point, we've seen explosive growth. We've seen huge strides in culture, our teams, the strength of our teams, how we operate, our image. We took it from what was really a very young company in a very young part of its life cycle, to a maturing company, in terms of where we're at today. And so, did I know that First Rate was going to be there? No, but I had a very strong inclination that the way that I'm wired is we were going to do something pretty incredible.
Didn't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah. Didn't matter. Now, Mendy, I mean, you ran and operated a very successful business, and you have a very entrepreneurial spirit. And I see you coming alive over there at First Rate, since you've gone on board. But talk a little bit about how'd you end up here in this industry, even?
In this industry, it really was through relationships. Timing is everything. And I was over in the REO industry, and one of my colleagues from REO industry called me and brought me over to SMS Assist to help build out their construction arm of the business before they sold out to Lesson. So we essentially really built their financials to get them ready to sell. And we did a fantastic job. And so that's kind of how I dipped my toes into the SFR side of things, and really loved it because of the construction flavor that it brought. And REO, it's exciting and it's interesting, but I really missed that construction side of things. So the terms and the renovations and things like that. So that's really what helped bring me into the fold of SFR. And then Chad, I just happened to be in Scottsdale last year, and Chad comes knocking on my door and says, "Hey, why don't you come over here and work with us? We really want to explode our growth and grow the SFR vertical." And he made me an offer that I just could not refuse, because I'm sure you can tell it's Chad. He's got such an addictive personality. Like, you're drawn to him because he's so positive and he has such a growth mindset, and he's on a growth trajectory. And I really wanted to be a part of that. And I just feed off of that energy, and it's just really great energy over here at First Rate.
Yeah, you do feed off of that energy. You possess that energy as well. And I think, and we're going to get into this now, moving forward here into the next segment, is the two of you, as I put this show together and really study, I know you very well, but as I studied Chad, I was like, wow, this is a match made in heaven right here. They're going to do big things. And so, Chad, you absolutely have had this vision of doing big things. So let's move on. And that's a great segue into some areas here. So let's talk about, so we met a couple weeks ago. We're actually doing some onboarding conversations around something. We're not going to totally spoiler alert it right now, but something you guys are working on, something very, very big. And you, Chad, shared your first day at First Rate with me. And it's a great story. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about, what did you see that day when you walked into First Rate that nobody else was seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. And and thank you for the question. I love talking about it because it's such a pivotal moment for me and what I remember and with First Rate. And so, there's really, I like to think of it as kind of like the burnt out light bulb effect, right? And so you go into the same office every single day and there's a light out. Well, that becomes the normal, right? And so if it's fixed, it's normal that light's out, and you start to not even notice that. When I walked into First Rate, I saw a very young company, a very hungry company, And a lot of just, I don't want to say disorder, but disorder, right? Where it was just like people were hustling and running around and all that kind of stuff. And I thought to myself, I said, wow, I can truly have an impact here in very quickly. And so, so I walk in and I see that and I fall in love and I'm like, this is where I'm meant to be in this moment. Like I am meant to be here. And so I go in and I sit down and I didn't know, similar to kind of what Mendy was saying, I didn't have a whole lot of really no experience in the REO space. Didn't really know it existed so much outside of, working with those experiencing homelessness to work with other organizations to get homes ready for them. And so I didn't know a whole lot about it. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set up at least once a week. It turned into be twice a week meetings with people at the office so I can learn every single thing about this business. I requested the FHA handbook. For those of you that never read the FHA handbook, it's like this thick. There's a whole lot of information in there. And so I read it.
I've never read it.
I'm a huge reader. So, I read the whole thing. I pestered everybody. They probably thought, who the heck is this guy? This guy is crazy. And then fast forward, over a decade later, and they're like, oh, this guy's the CEO and co-owner of the company. And so, but that was the process that I went through. So what I decided was I was going to start meeting with the different people in the office so I could learn every single thing about not just the industry, but also the business. I needed to understand where exactly was the business. On first view, I see a very young business, a hungry business, people who are hustling. I didn't even know where they were at specifically. So then I could design programs and start implementing things, having conversations to kind of move us along. And so I did that. And like I said, I think people probably thought, who the heck is this guy? He's crazy. Some of them did, I'm sure. And now some of them, like one of them who's with us on our team right now, our EVP of operations, Kelly, she's been with me since the beginning. We've had that relationship, but we forged that relationship and, taking the company next level. And that's what it took. And it was very incredible. It was a great experience and continues to be so.
So you didn't just walk in and they were doing everything perfectly? Really?
I bet, you know what? I bet they thought they were. I bet they thought they were, right? I bet they thought.
Well, don't we all?
Exactly.
Don't we all? And I think that speaks to so many things around this industry really having to reinvent ourselves. And, even at the intro of the show, I say, are you a lifelong learner? Because I think innately we are in this business because it's ever changing. It's ever flowing. I mean, even just from a year ago to today, is vastly different. 2 years is vastly different. And it's not like it's going, we're busy, we're slow. When I first got into the industry, I felt like it was more ebb and flow, like, oh, okay, they're buying a bunch of houses. Now we're going to get busy, so we're going to scale. It's not just that. It's not just growing and scaling and, oh, we're getting more work and now we've got to hire more people. We've got technology coming at us faster than fast. We've got different mindset of different generation coming in and looking at things with a different lens. Post-COVID, I think every single person, every human has started to value different things in different ways. Sure, I do have a lifestyle attitude towards work, but also I prioritize my family as the two of you do. And recognize, I think if we go back 10 years, maybe didn't have time to prioritize my family all the time. We were drinking from a fire hydrant at the beginning of this business, let's face it. And I think we learned from that because we burnt out a lot of people. And I think a lot of times we get head down in our business, the light bulb goes out and nobody notices it because we're just so head down in the business working in it. And I think the ebb and flows, what I've learned in this industry is give us some time to come up, get our head up, come out of the water and start to work on it, not in it. But when you're starting, Chad, and they were starting, you don't always have the bandwidth to have that many team members to have dedicated employees or leaders to work on the vision and strategy. So what I hear you coming in and saying is, hey, I gotta learn the business. And then I got to figure out what our strategy is going to be here. But I can't even implement strategy or paint a vision as a leader. Your role as CEO is to set the course and then get out of their way. And you didn't even know what you were getting out of the way of. You just saw some stuff. So,
Absolutely. And I say that like every business, it goes through the life cycles, right? There's life cycles and there's certain periods in the business. And so when you're a very young business, like you were saying, you don't necessarily have the resources to hire huge teams, right? Experienced teams. And so really you have to look at, how do we walk along this path, in the right way and within that life cycle. And so, something I view and that we talk about at First Rate is I want to be successful. You have to be a why person, constantly challenge the norm, right? Because in this industry, you have to constantly challenge those norms. Ask why. Why is that light out? Why hasn't it been fixed? Why is this, and I come out and to a lot of people, I think that's kind of counterintuitive to kind of how we're kind of trained growing up. Don't ask why. You would do what you're told to do and kind of move on. And so, but in this business, you have to ask why. And so once, at First Rate, once we instilled and we continue to instill, we are not perfect by any stretch. We continue to instill that type of a culture. It's really about getting the buy-in from the people, right? From our people. They have to believe in our vision. They have to believe in our ability to achieve, our vision. And so them asking why is a critical part to that process of buy-in and execution.
So Mendy, do you see it the same way? You joined the team now, what's been a few months. Believe it or not, I couldn't believe, I was like, it is second quarter already, right? So you met in Scottsdale. That was December.
Uh-huh.
What do you see? You see it the same way. Clearly, you joined the team, and at the beginning when you interview, you're like, yeah, that all sounds great. What do you see?
Well, what I see is a team that's hungry for growth. And I love that because, I was talking to Chad yesterday, I want to make sure we're all rowing in the same direction. And it's so important to have a growth mindset. And what I see at First Rate Field Services is that everybody is hungry for growth. We're hungry for new clients and new verticals, and we're hungry for expansion. And that's something that I want to continue to foster.
That's where career vision for the people in the business, right? Chad, it sounds like to me, when I started 13 years ago in a small mom and pop organization, sub 1 million, I walked in, there were 5 employees. 2 of them were family members and, mom and sister. So not just any old family members, but, female driven mother and sister, very, very protective mother and sister. And, I'm coming in and I knew nothing about the business, but I knew how to paint a vision and I know how to get people on deck, right? Or, get them in the batter's box and, they're warming up and swinging. I know that feeling. And I eat it for breakfast. And I see that in you too, where you're like, okay, I can have impact here. Mm-hmm. And that was the moment, right? You went there and you didn't say, oh my gosh, this is a mess. You're like, ooh, I want to get dirty. And then we're going to do big things. And you know what? That's why Mendy came on board. That's why you keep your team. That's why they stand behind you, because they love a visionary that includes them. And what you guys don't just include is your people, but you're including community. And so let's kind of talk about that. So we've talked about that, where we can get stuck, those gaps. What were some of the gaps, the key gaps? What were maybe the top 2 gaps that you saw that you're like, hey, here's what we're going to do first, second, or third. After you went and took those meetings with your team, how did you set the direction and get everyone rallied?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I love the talk about rallying the team, right? Because
He's good at
it
rallying
does
the team.
it
I
does
love the
take
rally.
it,
Very
there's
encouraging.
times where you
Yes.
gotta jump in and you gotta say, all right, team, eyes on me, let's go, right?
Yeah.
And so whenever when I think back to that time, I would say the biggest challenge was it really boils down to fear. Fear of imperfection, fear of something failing. And I think that is one of the biggest things that holds people back, honestly, because something might not be perfect. And I think that we inherently, our human nature is driving us to say, well, if it's not going to be perfect, then I don't want it, right? And that type of culture has certainly exploded in the last 20-25 years with the tech boom, all that stuff. Constant innovation and perfection has really pushed us. And so, like, even new generations, right, the 25-year-old, the 30-year-old, that's what they grew up in, right? And so going to the teams and talking with them, the biggest thing I saw was fear. Well, if that tool doesn't work specifically and it isn't perfect, we can't use it. And so I would say, oh no, we're going to use it, and then we're the ones that are going to perfect it.
We're going to break
And
it,
so
actually. Let's
exactly, like
break
we are going to break it. And so I
Giving them
started
back their
designing.
power. Yeah.
Exactly, giving them back their power. Perfectly put, Mendy. And I said, okay, so I designed process and I designed workflows and utilizing different technologies and all that stuff, and brought those together. And I said, all right, team, what do you think? Well, it doesn't work. I know it doesn't work. It's not supposed to work right now. You're going to make it work, though. We are going to power it to work together and continue to perfect it. And now looking back, a lot of those same tools we use today, that I am the team, because it's not just me, it's the team that we developed together 9 years ago, right? And we use it, and it's fluid and it's efficient and it works very, very well. And we plug different, people into that process, and they're like, oh wow, that was faster. And we're like, oh, for sure. But you know what? They're still not perfect tools, which is hilarious to me. We're constantly innovating on them and improving them with new insight and new perspectives of team members coming in and all that stuff. So I would say that, I know you asked for two, but I really, that was the biggest challenge, was the fear. The
Well,
fear that
sometimes it is just
it's going
one.
to work. Is it going to fail? And getting over that fear and saying, no, we're together, and we're a team. You don't have to be afraid. I got your back. You have my back. Let's get to work.
Yes. Sometimes it is just one main thing, and fear, Mendy, we talk about this a lot. Fear of failure,
Mm-hmm.
imposter syndrome. We talk a lot about that over on the She Suite. You and Tanya talk a lot about imposter syndrome.
Big
That is
thing.
very real. Talk a little bit about that when starting out. SMS Assist, if you look at them today, now they've grown into, lesson, and they're huge, humongous, thousands of tickets a day getting processed. Did you guys ever think that it wasn't going to be possible?
It was very overwhelming in the beginning. We were building out a construction arm that was new for the company, even though they were a long time established company. I mean, we started out with $17,000 in revenue and within 2 years built it to 56 million. We were doing an exorbitant amount of turns and renovations, and we were churning and burning. And,
Okay, pause there.
life.
I need
Yeah.
the audience to rehear that again. You were doing 17,000 and went to 56 million.
In 2 years, yes.
2 years.
Projected to double that the following, and then that's when they sold the lesson and they made some changes. But we did, at the time, I think we were all in awe.
Oh, wait, hang on. Well, because nothing was perfect again?
No, in fact, I went into launch one of the Texas markets, Houston. A client says, "Hey, can you launch that market?" I'm like, "Sure, not a big deal. We won't have much. We'll just have like 5 renovations." I'm like, "Fine, I'll just run them and then build a team based off volume." And those 5 were not 5; they were 30. I went, oh my gosh, I've got to run 30 renovations and hire a team and train them in the whole. So it was crazy. And we didn't have a really good conversion tool at the time to convert the scopes that we were receiving from clients. And so I was having to do renovations off spreadsheets until we could get everything. The information wasn't even in the system yet. So everything was backwards, the cart before the horse. There were wild horses everywhere and carts everywhere. But we were able to work and get the processes put in place and get caught up. But we very much were flying the airplane and building it at the same time.
So I heard a news saying you weren't building it. The plane took off, and then the parts were actually just like slingshot toward your plane, and then you had to like grab them. So
yes, it was a hot mess.
For a little it was a hot mess. And if anybody in this industry tells you it wasn't, they're lying. I don't care. I don't care. There was not a business. We're so young. We were all trying to figure it out. There was just a lot of houses getting built, and it's a testament to community, because here's what the owner operators did, right? They started buying up a bunch of houses, and they reached into the local communities, and they found people who could do the work and move the needle. And that's something that has remained standard for you at First Rate.
Yeah. My son's people care here. I'm not saying that people don't care in other places. I'm just saying I can tell people care about doing the right thing, even if and they're more comfortable, thanks to Chad, with making a mistake or two, because really that's where the growth happens. With like, oh, we didn't know that was broken or needed to be adjusted. Oh, let's adjust it, and it's okay. It brings it to light. It's a safe environment to learn and expand and grow, and that's what I love about First Rate.
So let's switch back to you, Chad, because I want to really spend some time talking about, you guys made a decision really early on. And that focus was to stay local, right? And not necessarily use a national vendor unless you have to. I'm sure there's cases when it makes sense for your client, or it makes sense for the community and First Rate. I used to have something called the triple win. I still live by the triple win, right? If it worked for the company, but it didn't work for the people or the customer, it didn't matter. We couldn't do it. And that's how we balanced decisions. And that's how I would challenge. It's actually how I taught my team how to make decisions. Because if you can balance the triple win mentality, like if just the employees win and the company doesn't win, well, then that doesn't work either. If I just go out and give everyone raises and the company doesn't show a profit, well, then we lose. We all lose, right? It's kind of like marriage, Chad, right? 16 years. When somebody wins, we all lose, right? It can't all be. It's got to be the triple win. There's got to be that triangular connection. But you made this decision early on in the business to stay local. Let's talk about, what did it mean to stay local for you?
You know, honestly, it means a great deal. So first, let's talk operationally, right? It is a little bit, when we talk about kind of that triangle, it is a little bit heavier touch management wise, right? But the benefit is so much greater, because from a communication perspective, we're getting real time information, and so by being direct to the we're getting real time information, and we're not watering down costs, right? So you think, client pays X for, just say a simple order like landscaping. Client pays X, but they are using a national provider who's then using maybe another national provider or regional, who's then maybe using a statewide, and then maybe then finally the boots on the ground. So now you're 3, you're 4, you're 5 times removed from the process. Well, every single company in that chain is taking their percentage, because they're in business and they have to make their money and their expense, right? So they're taking, exactly. So they're taking their percentage. And then also, every single time, you ever play the telephone game in school where it was like, I don't know if your teachers ever did that, but they did that for us to kind of show us how rumors kind of evolve as it goes kind of through that game. But when you're 3, 4, 5 times removed, that's also removed from the communication. And so between communication and the pricing, the biggest impact is to the quality. And so the quality of work that's happening in the field is so degraded because when you take 3, 4, 5 price cuts, you take out the communication element. So who really knows what's going on specifically? You're taking an order that might be at $40 down to $7.73 for that order, and there's no way that that's a real number to complete that service. And so
That moves the
going
needle.
local, exactly. And so going direct to the tech and staying local empowered us to say, okay, we're going to maintain that quality. When you talk to a person at first rate, you're talking with a person that knows exactly what's going on. So you are getting that context. And then even further beyond that, in most cases, we're able to stay ahead of our clients. So they don't have to ask that question because we already have that answer because it's that fast. That information flow is that fast. We already have that answer. And so that's really important. Of course, right, from a quality perspective, client service, but really community service, being a value add to the community. People want their communities to be nice. They deserve to be nice. They absolutely deserve to live and function and take their kids on walks in nice communities, live in nice communities. And so by doing, and we say, I go out in the field at least twice a month, and I go and I talk to neighbors because I love talking to neighbors. How you doing? How's it been? If I've never met you, here's my name. Here's my card. If there's anything going on, what's the history of this community? What are you known for? You have any
Important to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're neighbors. We are neighbors in every community that we operate in. We view ourselves as neighbors, and we have a very serious responsibility as neighbors in that community to serve it well and be productive with it.
Mendy, what happens when companies lose that connection?
I think it's pretty clear to the clients. I think when companies cannot put themselves in the shoes of the clients or the residents, then they lose that empathy. They lose that understanding. They appear and are disconnected, and they don't seem proactive. They seem reactive. And clients, I was just talking to a client this morning, and they, we were talking about that mentality in the industry of, okay, well, if this vendor doesn't perform well, there's another one. There's next. But really, we were having the discussion about, okay, well, that's not a good long-term strategy. Eventually you're going to run out of vendors or good ones. So why
That's
not?
that quick strategy again, right? That not only, Chad, that you see at some of the entry-level roles that you walked into at first rate, desiring ownership, but what you just explained, Mendy, I don't believe you were most likely having a conversation with a leader of the industry. So there's that perfection, that strive for perfection versus progress. Again, if you're a rising star, if you're new in the industry, look, we all have that desire for perfection from entry level. I'm just getting started to the top CEOs in the industry. It is innately in us, to Chad's point, because we're human, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that it's very apparent when you have a vendor or a contractor, this from a client perspective, who maybe is not checked in. There and because there's so many layers, if you do have those layers, you can tell that the communication is only as good as the person receiving it and passing it on. And what lens are they looking through? And so maybe if you've got several layers involved, you've got 5 different layers, you've got 5 different lenses on top of that, that's disseminating and changing the information. So I think it's so clear and it's so important to be engaged, to be proactive, and be over communicate and be really well connected with the client, which means building that client relationship, but also that internal relationship so that everybody, like I see at First Rate Field Services, really cares about the process and they care about each other.
Yeah, I'm a little on the fence. So there's parts of everything being centralized that I think do drive efficiencies and drives NOI. But I challenge, does it really drive resident experience, which is the biggest impactor to NOI than anything else? So sure, it might bring the needle down a little bit here, put the needle up a little bit there, but that resident experience is so hard to really put your finger on NOI with resident experience, because unfortunately, once that resident is gone, you've lost the opportunity to identify where you broke if they don't tell you. And most residents don't tell you. They tell you by leaving and not renewing their lease. And then you're sitting there like, ooh, what happened? Why did we lose that? Was that just natural transition? Did they relocate? Was it, and why didn't they relocate within our portfolio? So thank you for that answer. And it also talks about the real partnerships that I think in this industry, as vendors, I know we've talked about this a few times when dealing with very large institutionals. Sometimes, we talk about, hey, how can we really partner? And it's harder to partner with the bigger guys than it is even the smaller portfolios, because those smaller portfolios don't have the resources to truly partner. They really want to partner with you. The big guys, they don't need you. They don't need us. They can go partner with anyone. And it really truly doesn't always feel like a partnership, does it? Because you made a mistake, so you get fired or you get less work orders. And that's really, really real. And I think we're at a moment in this industry, though, that we're allowed to have these conversations, and these conversations matter.
I think the resident experience does matter tremendously. It's a hot topic. And I do, before your next question, would really like to give Chad the opportunity to talk about how we enhance the resident experience by use of our virtual inspections.
Let's talk about that, because that is exactly where I was going.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Mendy. So when we're thinking resident experience, again, it goes back to community. We're neighbors, and we're there to assist, right? And so we are the face of our clients. And so wrapping them up in a strong service, making them feel that they're being listened to, and that the problem is going to be corrected. It's going to be corrected efficiently, expertly, all those good things is very important. And so, we have a program that we deploy at First Rate. We've been doing it for many years now. And it's a virtual guided inspection. And essentially what we do is we utilize W-2, so employees of First Rate inspectors, that are able to communicate with in real time video. It's our software, but in real time video, with the resident, walk them around the issue, talk with them, hear them out. Okay, how did this start? What's the impact? Is there anything we can do for you? Exactly. And so kind of wrap them in that service and say, no, we got your back, neighbor. Like we're going to help you. And then capture, all of video capture and with photos, capture in detail as much as possible about the issue before we ever even send a tech to the property. And so we're getting all that information on the front end and supporting the resident at the very start of that process. Right. And so, and that enables us to be even faster with our techs, because now we have all this information.
You're faster.
We're able to have all this
better information. We're not just relying on the work order that may have limited information. We're getting it right from the resident direct.
Right from the resident, capturing it right there on site.
And when there's multiple vendors in a turn, or probably not in your wheelhouse, where in my wheelhouse we were just flooring, so we were working with multiple vendors. You guys are curating most of the vendors, and you probably do go in with some isolated tickets and one trick pony for that work order, but for the most part, you guys can do a full service from going in, doing the inspection, clearing out the house, to fully turning that unit.
Yes.
And then
So
ongoing maintenance after that.
And then ongoing maintenance
and
at
ongoing
once it
maintenance
gets into
after that.
occupy.
Yeah, and so when we talk with our clients, and I appreciate that our clients, they have certain national relationships, or street that they like to do certain things through. Some clients are, hey, we have this flooring partner, that's who we use pretty exclusively, and that's what we're going to do, and that's fine. The thing that I like to explain to them though is that whenever it's not central, when we're not managing the entirety of the project, that's where we can really start to see delays, right? So for instance, if you're doing a floor, well, we're not going to go in and we're going to be actively painting while they're installing the floor. That doesn't, those don't go together. We're going to be on top of each other. So one of those activities have to, the floor should come after the paint.
It's the number one reason a job would bust, actually. Jobs would bust. Number one reason. If I could have saved tens of thousands of dollars to the bottom line of the flooring company I was running for just busted jobs because we got there, paint traditionally should go before flooring. And then
top down. That's how you
right.
typically do it.
So, a lot of times we get there and the painters were still there. And, we would try to work with the painters if we could.
Sure.
We'd do anything we could not to bust a job. If we could work in 2 different floors of the house, if we could work in 2 different rooms of the house and keep that ticket, because shaving days off of turn times is the number one NOI killer, period.
Mhm.
Even if I delayed the job or busted the job, days and days. So if the painter falls a day behind, then that pushes flooring a day behind. And then there's this compounding factor of really, so knowing before you go, that's, we've got a Guillermo in the industry taught me that, saying triaging with an inspection can not only impact the bottom line, but if it's resident occupied, absolutely in decreasing the amount of times you step into a home. And every single time you step into an occupied dwelling, you are either going to get a good review or a bad review.
Right.
And so the way to impact bad reviews and good reviews is decrease the amount of times you go in the house.
Mhm.
Right.
And by
Well,
triaging.
and we also want to, we also don't want to impact their lives so much with
Correct.
issues, right? And so having to constantly, break into basically, I don't know about you all, but for me, my home is my oasis, right? I'm
Yeah.
there, and it's comfortable and it's relaxing, and I love being here, right? And so it's the same way for the tenants, right? And so every time you have to break that, you kind of go through that gate, you're disrupting their life.
You are.
And so whatever we can do to reduce that, and make them feel supported, that's exactly what we're going to do, and that's exactly what our virtual inspections achieve.
Yeah, it's kind of like, would I rather go to dinner with my family or handle a maintenance issue? I think I'll handle a maintenance issue, said no one ever. Like, no, I want to go play with what little time I do have left to play with my family because I'm working,
Right. And what if you are the one that gets dispatched out to rectify something and you're the wrong trade? And that could have been really identified. So what about the job joy of the technicians or the people you're deploying to go out and address that? I can't tell you how many times we go out to a home, and we would walk in and say, "Oh, you're absolutely going to need new floors, but we're going to need to get this 2 inches of water out of your house first." Right. And so we're being deployed. And that's training and that's education. And that's on the front end of triaging and send all this centralized dispatch, really understanding and gathering as much truth and data around that house and the problem with that immediate phone call. And so walk us through that. So you are able to virtually walk them through a guided tour to triage what's really going on. It could be a breaker, flip the breaker and you're done.
Right. And then
No dispatch.
Exactly. And that's it, right? And so as soon as we get, that ticket through. It comes to us, right? And we're able to take that, make contact with the resident and say, okay, tell us kind of what's going on. What are we looking at? Here's who we are. And guess what? You're going to talk to me, the same person. You're not going to talk to 20 different people. You're going to talk to the same person, and I'm going to be essentially your resident concierge, right? Like, I'm here for you. I'm going to coordinate these services for you. We're going to fix this issue, right? So talk me through what's going on. So, the resident then talks through what's going on, and we say, okay, if we can't fix it right there, help troubleshoot right there on the phone, we might say, okay, let's hop on this virtual inspection. Super easy. You don't have to download an app or anything like that. We're going to send you a secure link. It's going to dial you right. It's going to pull you right into our system.
Show me.
And show me. Let's see what's going on. And so then our team's able to take that. Our team's actually the one taking the photos, but the photos that are coming through are not screen grabs of the video feed. They're actually from the end user's device. So if you purchased your cell phone in the last, 10, 12 years, you got a pretty decent camera on your phone, right? Yeah. And so takes the photos right there, and then those cycle through in real time. So our employee is looking at those photos and the video as it's coming through, and then able to kind of triage the problem. Okay, I see we have this going on. Do we have a leak? Well, a leak's not just a leak. We don't just have to go and, fix a leak. Maybe it might not just be a plumber. We have a leak that caused the drywall damage, that caused the damage to the floor. Okay, so what do we got to do? So now we got to coordinate. And so our employee knows, okay, I know I'm going to need a plumber. I'm going to need, carpenter for some drywall or whatever, the different pieces to the puzzle, and and talk to the resident at the same time and say, hey, I'm going to pull all the pieces of this puzzle together. We're going to get this fixed for you. We're going to get it fixed for you quickly. Here's what you can expect on the visit. We're going to have so-and-so there. This is their name, company name. Guess what? They're local to you. We're not just sending anybody out there. They've been through compliance, and so we're able to really have that robust experience with the resident.
Build rapport.
Exactly. And make them feel good about it. So that way, I don't think that there's a scenario where a renter's only ever had one issue in the entire time that they've rented at the same house, right? There's multiple issues. So it's not the first time we're going to be probably talking, right? And so, but we've established that rapport. So now they feel comfortable coming to us and saying, hey, I'm having this issue. Okay, great. Let's get with the client. So maybe they don't submit a ticket to the client, even though that's the process. They reach out to us. We're able to go back to the client and say, hey, we talked with the resident at property, X. This is kind of what's going on. We understand. We told them to make sure they submit a ticket. We are currently on top of it. We've collected information. As soon as that comes through, we're going to be able to action that and get this resident taken care of.
Well, insurance clients can appreciate that we are protecting their resident, because not only is it a physical asset, the resident is an asset as well.
100%.
And we're also protecting their brand and our brand as a whole.
Yeah, because, all right, so the other side of that as well is, so back in the day in the flooring business, because I talk about flooring a lot because it's where I spent 15 years of my career learning this side of the business. When LVP became the flooring that most of the operators were putting in, a lot of times, believe it or not, when I got involved, it was sheet vinyl, right? So sheet vinyl and carpet. It wasn't LVP. As LVP came in, we started going to our carpet guys and said, hey, you got to start learning LVP. Now, I didn't do that just because I was like, oh, carpet's going away, because look, carpet's not going away. It's never going away. Some people only have carpet budgets. I did it because less times in the house. I need carpet and LVP done. Most carpet guys could do sheet vinyl. They thought in their mind that LVP was hard surface. So they're like, no, but send the hardwood guy. The hardwood guy is like, I'm not putting down vinyl. I'm a hardwood guy. Right. So it takes leadership to paint a vision around why. And so I'm bringing this full circle back to the beginning, Chad, and to your point in the why. The why is we want to go into the home and we want to interrupt that home the minimum amount of time. So I need you as a carpet guy to actually become a really good LVP guy, because most of our tickets are coming over right now with LVP and carpet. And we want to go in that home the minimum amount of times as possible. Most flooring organizations were not thinking like that. And we were able to grab market share and take a little mom and pop because we were really thinking about the resident experience. And then also what I was thinking about when you guys were sharing, one of the biggest things with resident experience is they get so frustrated, they don't call it all. And then to your point, Mendy, how is the asset, one of the assets you named, actually being impacted, right? So if someone keeps going to the stove and getting burnt, they're going to be like, you know what? Not even going to call about that stupid thing in the house. Like, you know what? I'll deal with it. We're moving out in 6 months. We're out of here. So when they don't call, now you're losing a resident and your asset is actually sitting in a situation where it didn't get repaired. And now that problem actually compounds. So the cost of working with an organization that doesn't understand the importance of resident experience is way bigger and way deeper that a lot of people don't even take the time to consider because they don't fully understand the business. And that's what Inside the Vendor Network's about is it's SFR BTR. We're not talking multifamily over here. We're not talking for sale construction over here on Inside the Vendor Network. I built this because serving SFR BTR in this industry is entirely different than any other asset class. Even when there's a resident involved, it's not the same as multifamily. It is absolutely not. Even though it is, it's a rental, it is entirely different. And how you guys are approaching your business is to wrap a profitable process around a deliverable specific to your type of client and what their needs are, and that shave days, drive resident experience, and leave a smile on everyone's face in that community. And I love that. It's amazing what you guys are building. Okay, so we have come to my favorite part of the show, and that's called the lightning round, where I'm going to rapid fire some quick questions to you guys. And these are kind of quick answers. I'm going to put you on the spot. So, first quick answer, Chad, one thing that sounds good, but it doesn't work.
Perfection.
Bingo. I think we hit that one on the nose today. 100%. Mendy, what's one thing that actually works every single time?
Consistency.
That's right. Chad, biggest mistake operators are making right now?
That's a great question. I would say probably cycling through vendors in an effort to potentially shorten timeframes. I think it's a big mistake. It causes a lot of quality issues. It drives a lot of really good vendors out of doing work for them.
Yeah. I 100%. I could probably talk. You and I could probably do a whole segment on that, Mendy, as well. So,
absolutely.
You know, some of my worst installers became my best installers over time. You know, nothing ever grows. It's a two-way street. Nothing ever grows in comfort. Ever. Right. And ever. We can read these memes. We can like them, share them, comment them, all these great quotes. But you got to apply it, right? You got to apply it in the business, and you got to apply it to the most important relationships. And I would challenge that your vendors, if you're an owner operator, it's one of the most important. The second to your employees is your biggest asset class right there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know, so Mendy, what separates a good vendor from a great vendor?
I would say a couple of things. One is direct, accurate communication, over communicate, transparency, make sure the client is in the know, because you're basically equipping them to make decisions because you're representing what's really going on real time in the field, and you're giving them that information so that they have the right tools to make the right decision about their asset and the resident that's in that asset. And then right behind that is consistency.
And communication, right? Like,
mm-hmm.
So Chad, one word to describe first rate.
Oh, that's a really, really good one. One word to describe first rate. I'm a man of many words, as so my two wives
I
tell
am too.
me. One word that describes first rate, I would say integrity. I think that we operate with a great deal of integrity throughout our teams, and that's what it takes to be successful in this business. So,
Yeah.
integrity.
Doing the easy thing isn't always the right thing, right? That's how I was raised. That's what my father said. The easy answer is probably the wrong one. And I really live by that today. And our businesses are made up of 1,000 little decisions. And integrity doesn't need to be one we're questioning. And so when you have a platform of integrity, okay, make the wrong decision, but make one, right? It's okay. Again, not perfection. As long as you're operating from a good place with integrity, that's okay. Keep it, fail forward all the time. So
Absolutely.
thank
Our
you for that.
people and our communities, our clients deserve that.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
fail
do.
forward. Thank you so much. I love that. I love that answer. What's one thing, Mendy, that you've changed your mind about now that you're at first rate?
Oh my gosh. The sky is the limit. There are no limitations here at first rate.
That's really amazing. And I know that you pivot with integrity and clarity. And so I believe that 100% true. And I can't wait to get into the next phases with first rate and see what you guys are doing. So Chad, if you could fix one thing overnight, what would it be?
Our motto at first rate is be the best, right? And so that's one of our mottos that we use internally. And so we're constantly self-assessing and saying, okay, what could we have done better here? Yeah, we did a great job. How does it become even greater, right? How does it become even better?
Yeah.
How does it get even bigger? And so, I try to think through if there's something that I could fix overnight, would probably be the consolidation of technology within the space. I think that there is a lot of different, really incredible tools. There's a lot of incredible companies in the space that have, developed incredible tools. We have clients who have their own technologies that they're developing. We have a workflow management system that we operate in. I think that this industry, SFR, BTR, would greatly benefit though from some consolidation or a quicker way to tie in just with the advancements in technology.
Yeah.
Right. Just a way to kind of bring everything together. So if I could fix something overnight, that would probably be it, because that would enhance the resident experience, the efficiency of the process, which lends to the resident experience,
All of
right?
it.
Client operation. I mean, it would literally impact the entire chain throughout.
Yeah, less button clicking, right?
Yes.
Just less clicks to get something accomplished is so important. And we have so many people, and there's so much tech noise out there, to the point that Inside the Vendor Network launched an entire signature podcast within Inside the Vendor Network to tackle tech, because I was like, we need someone to cut through this noise. Let's really get down to it. Let's get nitty gritty tech with one of the leaders, fractionals, CTOs in the space, Reshma Block. She's amazing. So the Reshma report,
Really
we're unpackaging
lots
tech.
of respect.
Tons of respect. And she's asking the tough questions, like why? She's asking the whys. So stay tuned to that podcast, because she asks the questions boldly, quickly, and to the point, and is cutting out a lot of noise. So I think you're right. I've heard her explain tech stacks as a pile of spaghetti. And doesn't it feel that way? It's like,
That's a great description.
Yeah, we got a fun little activation we're doing down in Miami, and I bought a twister board, old school twister.
Oh, wow.
Well, if you can imagine tech and twister, we're gonna be doing a fun activation down in Miami. So you guys will be there to see it. You'll be in Miami.
Fun.
Yeah.
I would love to
Okay.
support
Good.
that.
Awesome. Mendy, what does first rate mean to you? What does it actually mean to you?
First rate means to me, along with integrity, community with integrity. And
Yes.
it's a really close-knit group of people who really care. They've got a lot of experience. They've been in the business a long time. And not only do they care about each other, but they really do genuinely care about doing a good job, and supporting not only our clients, but our vendor network and also people, each other internally.
Yeah, I love that too. So thank you both. This conversation is a reminder that great companies aren't built on perfection. They're built on people and on accountability and on what actually works, not just for the business, but for the clients and the communities depending on them. Chad and Mendy, thank you both for joining me today on Inside the Vendor Network.
Thank
Our
you. It was such a
pleasure.
pleasure to be here. Absolutely.
To everyone else tuning in, thank you for being here, and to our sponsor, Palisade Shower Systems, for your support and not being another manufacturer in the industry, but actually being part of the community. If you just are getting here, and we are just getting started. So if you're a rising star or you're an antique in this industry, head up to that subscribe button, hit the click button, because you're not going to want to miss these episodes coming up. We also have new podcasts coming to the platform. So be sure to stay tuned, because I think Chad and Mendy may be a part of something coming soon. What do you two think?
It's going
All
to be
right.
exciting.
It's going to be exciting. So if the audience wants to get a hold of you guys, Chad, Mendy, how do they get in touch with First Rate?
Very simply, you can shoot us an email. We have an info link, or you can find us online, hit us up on LinkedIn, follow us on LinkedIn, and send us a message. We'd love to talk with you and engage and see how we can collaborate together.
Sure. And we will have your links in the comments and up
Perfect.
above in the description of the episode. So until next time, I am your host, Yovonne Kenny. Keep building, keep leading, and let's keep getting inside the vendor network. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.